I just returned from East Africa. As you know, we take groups to Ghana every year. We've been to South Africa, and I've been to Liberia, Botswana, and other African countries. But this is the first time we took a group to East Africa. We went to Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. Kenya is New York and Nairobi. Nairobi is one of the most developed countries in all of Africa. However, if you go out to the rural areas of Kenya, you see rural Africa with poverty and all of the needs that come with poverty. In Uganda, we visited one of the last cultural centers that emerged after the leadership of Idi Amin. When Idi Amin was president, he dismantled all of the cultural institutions that had literal kings at the helm. And the kingdom of Bugwari is the last kingdom to reestablish itself after Amin. And we went there to help the king and his administration dig wells to ensure that the people in this kingdom had access to clean water. We literally walked about a half a mile to a well where people would have to walk every day just to get a cup of dirty water. And my biggest takeaway there was that we take for granted that we have clean water here in the United States, but for these people, getting access to clean water is the difference between life and death, and we're happy to serve. In Rwanda, the greatest takeaway was that the capital city of Rwanda, Kigali, is the cleanest city I've ever seen in my life. And when questioning how a city could be that clean, we learned that the president of the country has declared the last Saturday of every month as a day when the whole country just goes out and cleans their communities, cleans the cities. It is the most amazing thing you've ever seen. You can't take plastic bags into Rwanda because plastic, as you know, is a contributor to pollution, and there is no garbage on the streets. There's no litter on the streets. You can't find a cigarette butt in the capital city of Rwanda, and it's due to the leadership that the president has brought to the country in the post-genocide Rwanda. We also went to the genocide memorial where the story of the genocide, the conflict between the Hutus and the Tutsis occurred, and in 100 days, over 250,000 people were slaughtered, and that was a moving experience. Then we went from Rwanda to Tanzania and spent time in Zanzibar. We thought we were going to Zanzibar just to see nice beaches and to kind of chill and have the vacation portion of our trip, because we always do education, community development, cultural immersions, but this part of our trip was just the vacation part. But while we were there, we learned about the East African slave trade, which I had never really thought about. When the Africans were sold to the Europeans and to the Asians from Tanzania, they had a completely different experience than the West Africans that came to America and went to the Caribbean. And that experience was so different that it really motivated me to study and learn much more about the East African slave trade than I had ever known in my life. And that was a moving experience. And I saw a turtle that was 300 years old. It's just the most phenomenal trip. We took a little boat from Zanzibar over to Prison Island, an island where they built a prison, but by the time they finished the prison, enslavement of Africans was illegal, but they kept the prison, and it's now a tourist attraction. And among the other things they have there are this tortoise community where you have turtles that are 100 years old, 200 years old. One is 300 years old. That was a very significant experience. One of the best trips I've ever taken. We had a group with us, and I think the group will testify that it was a life-changing visit to East Africa. My favorite thing about visiting Africa is that the people of Africa just love us. They love Black Americans, contrary to what many of us were taught when we were coming up, that Africans love Black Americans. In fact, they love us so much that they emulate us and imitate us. And when you go down to the downtown area of a major African city, you can close your eyes and almost imagine being in America because they dress like us, their hair is like ours. but they love us, and we have a lot to offer them, and they have a lot to offer us. And so beyond the beauty of the continent, the uniqueness of the food, I think it's the people and their admiration for us that really keeps me going back to Africa on a regular basis. The Africa trips are really an outgrowth of my D-Free ministry and D-Free movement, because the trips always include some kind of community development. You know, D-Free in the United States focuses heavily on education and support services. In Africa, we focus heavily not only on education, but also on development, economic opportunity, entrepreneurship. And so D-Free is the umbrella for the tour. Our D-Free team in West Africa actually coordinates our trips to Africa. And so dfree.com is the place you can go to find out about all things D-Free, including our trips to Africa. We'll be taking 3 trips in 2026, one to South Africa, which may include an extension into Namibia and Botswana, a trip to Ghana, and then a trip to East Africa, where we'll replicate the 4 countries that we did in 2025.